You're listening to the Westminster Canterbury Tales podcast, creating community to foster joy and well-being. Thanks for listening.
All right, Greta Conger, am I saying that correctly?
Correct.
Okay, Greta, it's so good to have you here today. And this is our second podcast of Westminster Canterbury. Tell Me a Story is the name of this podcast. And so you're the second person we're interviewing, and we're so glad for you to be here. You've lived a long and wonderful life, and we want to hear just a little bit about that life and any stories along the way that you can tell us. So why don't you first, Greta, just start by telling us how old you are, if you don't mind?
No, I don't mind at all. I mean, I'm 102 years old. Going on 103, this year I will be 103.
Wow, okay. So you've lived a little while, and you've seen a lot of things. Tell us where you were born and a little bit about your childhood.
Well, there's my childhood. I was born in Tilsit, right at the Russian border. I mean, Lithuania. It did go back and forth. One time, Lithuania's independence. The next time, it was under Russian regime. There was a river, what they called Memel. On middle in the river, there was the Russian eagle and the German eagle. If we wanted to go, over the bridge, to Lithuania, if it was Lithuania, who was independent, we didn't need a passport. If the Russians took over, we needed a passport.
Oh, yeah. Now, this is where, today, is this Germany, or is this still,
this Prussia, is now divided between Russia and Poland.
Russia and Poland, okay.
There was a river, what's called, Pregel.
Okay.
That's where the dividing line was between Russia, and...
Yeah, so you weren't born in the United States. You were born over there in Europe.
I was born in Tilsit.
Yeah, in Tilsit, okay.
Right, so that was the end. There was from Damascus and the Memel in Germany. Things that was the end. Things. The Memel was the dividing line between Germany, Prussia, and Lithuania. Let's put it with Lithuania.
Okay. And what did your father and mother do? And did you have any brothers or sisters?
I had one brother. He was 14 years older than I am. And my father, he worked in the factory, but there in 1938, when Hitler started to build up, the army or things like that, he gave the Polish people, a choice, to leave half what they had, or, stay.
Yes.
Well, there was two brothers, and both of them, had factories. And then I had one sister, but one sister lived, with his brother, things. So they left half, and left the country.
Okay, so...
And then my father took over that factory.
Oh, okay. So did he own it or just manage it?
No, just manage it.
Okay.
Just manage it.
Okay.
Government took, I don't know who took it over, things, but anyhow, he was in charge.
Okay. And so that was that considered Poland at that time?
No, it was Prussia.
Prussia, okay.
Tilsit.
It
was in Tilsit, Prussia.
Okay. All right.
Poland, was...
Well,
my mother never, worked.
Yeah, she was a stay-at-home mom.
She was a stay-at-home mom at that time. I don't think, none of my aunts or things like that, nobody ever worked. They all stayed home.
Yeah, it was before women were working at that part. Okay, so and that was in 1930 that you remember your father taking over that, managing that. 38, okay. 38. Well, can you tell us what it was like during that time in your childhood? Because you were there in that area in Prussia during a very important time of change and transition and war.
I saw him in the build-up and the invasion for Russia.
Oh, okay.
That was 2 o'clock in the morning. There again.
So how old were you at this time?
Well, I was born 1919.
Okay, 1919.
I was 28 years.
28 years old.
No, just a minute. Yeah, 38. No, 18.
Yeah. 18 years old. Okay.
I did go to school, but I had only that one year that you don't have here in the United States. You see, I started like high school or things like that when I was 6. When I was 6 years old, I did go started Germany. You start school,
Right.
And then up to 10, and then I changed where my parents had to pay already. For the high school, like going to college.
Yes.
Well, I did go there, but then, well, you see, everything there's so much way to talk about it, I don't know exactly what is more important. At that time, there was a build-up, and all, the people, all the guys, from 18 to 55, had to go into war.
Yeah. And now who were they going, what government were they going to war for? The Prussian government? Or the German?
No, that was not.
German.
Hitler was was already taken over. Hitler was in charge.
He was in charge.
See, that was, yes.
Yeah, and so they had to work.
You see, 33, that's when Hitler started.
Yes, okay.
Oh, you see, then he started, well, he was very successful in a way, well.
Now, was he very, at the first, in 1933, did most people think he was going to be a good influence on the culture?
Well, you see, at that time, Germany was pretty far down, you see, right after World War I,
right.
we had, a president, von Bismarck, and then, von Hindenburg came after that,
right.
But things didn't look good. Everything, was on the down. You see, I was pretty young, then.
Sure,
So,
sure.
I cannot really
Remember
tell
all
you,
of that.
when it comes into the country, there, because.
Sure.
You see, but I met Hitler
you
in
met
my
him?
hometown, yes, because he made a speech before he took over.
Oh, my. Okay, so before he took over, so this was
that's right. Well,
very young.
Was,
yeah. Wow. And so, and was he very charismatic? A lot of people think of him as...
Germany needed to change somehow. I said I was very young. Now don't ask me there too many questions because I was really too young. To know everything. But anyhow, he took over and there again, he started off, with having the Volkswagen, middle class people, they had transportation, but we didn't, Then he built, what we call Siedlungen, that was housing, for middle class people, so they had, their own home.
Yeah.
So everything was on the up and everybody liked them.
Right.
Even, they come now and say, he was not too good, but anyhow, that's...
of course, yeah.
Well, then, you see, after, when they took all, the guys in 38, or even before, they already started, training people, for war.
Yeah, preparing for war.
So, you see, there was no schooling, you see, all the teachers and everything, had to go to war.
Had to go to war. So it just totally transformed life.
That's right.
And wow.
Well, only people after 55 was the only men after 55.
Right. So everyone else went to
That's
the
right.
men went
That's
to war.
Right. That's
wow.
Right.
Now, did they use women in the factories at all at that time when all the men had to go to war, or did they just still use the older men?
I think I really recall.
Recall.
I cannot tell you there. Women worked in the office and things like that.
Sure.
But in factories, yes, they did. But not labor.
Okay.
Not labor work.
Okay. So the other kind, yeah. Mm-hmm. Did you meet Hitler again, or just that one time?
No, that was the only time. Well, that is other stories. I could tell, but that is altogether different.
Yeah.
Things.
Okay.
Well, then everybody, who wanted to finish college, then later on, the farmers, they needed, help. So, we called, we was not called in, but we volunteered, help the farmers, Not too much in the fields. We did go in the fields, but no hard labor. We was not allowed to do any heavy work.
Right.
But things. So there was about 60 girls of us. We lived in a mansion.
Oh, okay.
And it was very nice. We helped people. And,
so you, as a young woman then in school, would go and actually help people?
We already stopped. We finished school. We finished
school.
You
had finished school? Okay.
Not finished, but like I said, there was only very few teachers left.
Yeah, okay.
See,
so that really interrupted your life and even
Right.
the possibility of your school life.
Correct.
Yeah. What's interesting to me about your life is that you were coming into this transition between being a child and actually, being a young woman, and then this war came right in the middle of it. And that must have been just mind-boggling and just totally disrupting of one's life.
It was, yes, in a way, things, but it's hard to explain, things. Everybody, Hitler, when Hitler started, the war.
Right.
He was so successful.
Right.
I think you know that.
Yes, I do.
He thinks so. We was not even really worried so much about it. The real start came. Things. Germany did go. Invaded so many countries. And took it over. And but when the war with Russia started.
Okay.
See, I think I told you when I saw
right.
the build up on the invasion. That's when things changed quite a bit.
Okay. And especially from where you live too, because you're so close.
I said it was 2 o'clock in the morning. I woke my dad, because I was married at that time.
Okay.
And I had a baby, and I stayed with my parents because my husband, was not living, with me. We was together, but he was transferred,
right.
teaching, night flying.
Oh, okay.
So, they didn't want me to be alone, so I stayed with my parents before I had a baby and after the baby.
Mm-hmm.
So it's 2 o'clock, that's when I woke my dad, and said, what is wrong? Daddy, I heard some noise, there's some bombs going. And I asked, Daddy, what is going on? He says, war with Russia. That's the end for Germany.
And he knew it. Your father knew that.
Yes. He said, we don't have enough troops, because they already had gone into Russia. He says, we don't have enough troops, to cover. He says, they will go in, but ammunition, will not reach them.
Yeah.
And that was the biggest problem.
Okay. And so your father knew that, too, and people...
Well, he was in World War I. He knew Russia.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And he knew what it took to fight on all these fronts.
That's right.
Wow. That's amazing. And you knew that day, and you could hear the sounds.
Oh, yes, that was right. They had to. You see, we had, the 2 bridges, the regular bridge and a railroad bridge.
Okay. And so at that time, you just heard the planes, or did you also hear the bombing and things like that?
There was no planes at that time.
There was no planes.
No.
Oh,
there was
so
only,
there was just...
Only bombing.
Only bomb.
Yes, there was shooting.
Shooting or using the large guns, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that must have been... So did your family stay where you were there? Because you were in a very precarious position, it sounds like.
Yes, my parents, they stayed there. They stayed until 44, end of 44.
Mm-hmm.
That's when they came, that's another different story, Things, you see, that's when already the German troops started coming back, from Russia,
Right.
We all knew,
it was going to be the end.
We knew, things, didn't look good. Even we've been told, everything will be okay.
Yes.
War is propaganda.
War is propaganda. That's well put, and I think you're right. So the government would always be saying one thing and giving a turn for the, kind of like Russia might be doing today with Ukraine, and saying, "Oh, it's okay."
Yes, because up to the last end, when there was still, a promise, but we all knew, that
you knew that it wasn't going to happen.
Oh, no,
at that
no,
point.
no, it wasn't possible. Things, all knew.
So what happened in 1944? You knew the Germans were coming back from Russia, and you knew things were going bad.
Well, in 44 is just, that's when, we've gone way, way back,
Okay.
Things,
Sure.
in between a lot of things happened, there. But, well, that's, when actually, that was when they already on the government, came to my father and said, look at we will take the factory, over there. They needed, I don't know exactly what they did.
Yeah, but the government took over the factory.
They wanted to go over, but they had the first casualties.
Oh.
And they said, it's too late. Yeah. But that's when my father tried to destroy, quite a few things, and then he came, to me, and at that time, they lived, maybe my hometown had about 80,000 people roughly, maybe a little bit over, maybe a little bit under.
Okay.
And there was not one person living.
Wow.
And I was there one night, all by myself. That's another story.
Okay. So where was everybody?
That was Tilsit when that happened, things. And then, there things, and then my father and my mother came to live with me. I lived in Neukuren, where my husband trained. He was an instructor.
Uh-huh.
And then they came and stayed with me.
Oh, they came and stayed with you?
Well, they had to leave the city.
Okay.
There was nobody there. There was no lights, no nothing.
Oh, wow.
The city was completely dead.
Yeah, because of the war.
Well, it was at the end. You see, the Russians.
Yeah.
That's already when there was, of the other side, of the Memel, of the river.
Yep.
And they were shooting in.
Wow. Yeah. So you remember that must have been a very.
Well, I was not there. Things.
Right.
But that's what happened. That's when.
But you knew later that's.
My parents, things like that. I didn't go, after that, to Tilsit.
Yeah.
But I said, that's another story.
My goodness.
So, and then, they stayed there, until.
So.
Well, and then, and, well, maybe, we go, where I left, my Neukuren, where I had my home, because my husband was coming to get me. Well, he had tried before, but I didn't want to leave my parents. And I said, no, I stay here, for a little while, because at that time he was a test pilot.
Right. Your husband was a test pilot.
Yes, but then the second time, things, he said, look, you better, things. So he was coming to get me. But over Poland, he ran into a heavy snowstorm and had to go down because he had to fly under the radar.
Yeah.
So he called the commanding officer, and said, tell my wife, that I will not be able to make it, and just see what we can do, to get her out.
Yeah.
Well, they called, said there comes, is only one little minesweeper is coming.
Uh-huh.
But that's the only way out.
And it's a minesweeper?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just a little ship.
A little ship.
A little ship, yes.
All right.
So because they had, they're a little fishing pier, so they could come on things.
Mm-hmm.
So, so we did go, mother, myself and my son, we did go. It was only a very short distance.
Yes.
And it was about 40 below zero.
Oh, my.
Yes.
It gets cold, I guess.
Yes, very, very cold, So my son, started, we was waiting, I didn't see a ship, inside, so he started crying because his face, was cold,
Sure.
So I said, Mama, let's go, back home. From my bedroom window, I could overlook, the Baltic Sea. I lived, on the first floor.
Uh-huh.
So I said, I can see when the ship is coming in, we still have enough time, to go, and catch it.
Yes.
Well, we did go back home, and then my father saw us, he teared. He had tears in his eyes and said, I don't think I would never see you again.
Yeah.
And my mother said, okay, I stay. I will not go home.
Oh my.
I said, then I will stay too. And he said, no, you go.
Yeah.
Well, that was an order. Yeah, he said, you don't know. I mean, the Russians, they would take your son, and the Lord knows what would happen to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And my mother experienced something, I mean, not very happy things. I mean, where one of my classmates, I mean, was captured or didn't make it, things. So anyhow, I saw that ship coming. And then I did go on. I mean, we did go on, and then my son and I, But
how old was your son at that time?
At that time, he was 3.5 years old.
3.5. Okay.
Yes.
So he was very young, and you were by yourself with your son at that time.
Right.
Just the two
I
of
was trying, to go, to my in-laws, who lived, right on the other side of Germany, like Bremen, actually they lived in Cloppenburg, but a lot of people they know Bremen, so
Sure.
Cloppenburg was only a small city.
Yeah.
Maybe I would say about 30,000 people, something like that, So that's where my in-laws lived, and that's where I had planned on going.
And did you make it?
Yeah, after about close to 3 weeks.
Oh my goodness.
That's how long I was on the road.
So did you, you got on the ship.
That's right, and became very, very sick. Oh, the Baltic Sea was so rough. It goes up and down. I mean, my son, the captain gave us, his little cabin. Just a little cabin, there. So, and my son, said, my tummy hurts.
Yeah.
So I put him down in bed, laid him down, and he fell asleep. Thanks God, then because I became sick, and I didn't want them to have a mess there in his cabin.
Yes.
So I tried to get him to go out.
Yeah.
But you see, the weather was so cold. There was only a rope around. There was no...
Yeah, no side or anything
no side,
like that.
Nothing, And actually, the water came on over, the sailors, they had to go, drop the ice.
Oh, no.
But then he saw, that I was, couldn't control myself hardly anymore, because I was so sick to my stomach.
Yeah, of course.
That he sent a sailor to hold me. I wouldn't slide off.
Yeah,
There was no board, no nothing, just a rope,
Yeah.
Only a very short distance, maybe like 12.
And how long did that last?
Well, then we supposed to go into Storp. What would have been quite a bit way into Germany. But then they got, a call, somehow, that they had some German troops still, in Lithuania that needed to be rescued.
Okay.
So, instead of going, to Storp, way into Germany, we did go to Pillau, what was a naval station. Germany had a naval station there.
A naval station, okay.
Still, in Prussia.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and that's when they let us off.
Okay.
So, but there...
But you weren't where you were supposed to be, were you?
No, well, things, everybody had to get off, and things until we did go to the barracks. But they had, a sabotage. They had, blown up, a couple mines,
Right.
other mines,
Right.
things. There was hardly, any window, in the barracks.
Yeah,
So.
in the
But
barracks.
I found one, what had, they were scattered, but then there again, the beds, there was no mattresses, there was only springs.
Oh my. Yeah, so that wasn't very comfortable.
So, I did go and try, to see if I could find, some cardboard, to lie down on the springs. Well, you do everything.
Oh yeah, you try to do. But at least you weren't sick on the ship anymore. You're getting a little better.
well, we had to get off,
Yeah,
and things.
yeah.
So, okay, now, here we stranded, you see. You didn't know what to do. Now you're on your own, see,
Yeah.
how you can get out.
Wow.
So, I did go, and, well, first of all, they came, and gave us some tickets, but only no names, things, because one ship did go, it was anchored, on
Right.
about 3,000 people, So I did go, but Baltic Sea was still so rough, and I says, no, I'm not going on another ship. I cannot handle that, So I gave my tickets away.
Oh, my.
Well, you see, that had to be so that wouldn't be overloaded.
Right.
But I found out later on that ship was torpedoed by the Russians.
Oh,
There's
my
no
goodness.
survivor.
No survivors?
Correct.
Oh, my goodness. So by giving that away, you really saved your life of your son and yourself.
Correct.
Wow. So how did you get to your in-laws?
Well, then, so I did go to find out. I thought, I go to Königsberg.
Okay.
It's now
Sure.
Kaliningrad.
Uh-huh.
That's where the train station was, to see, things about.
So the trains were still running at that time?
Well, not
very regularly.
no, there was no schedule.
Okay.
There, things,
Yeah.
just. But then when I did go out, I saw, there's some trucks.
Oh, okay.
And I asked them, if they're planning on that. I said yes. And I said there was 3 of them, on the Volkswagen, and
Yeah.
things. And they said, yes, and so I said, well, I need my suitcase, so they said, we will wait, and so
Sure.
I did go out, and my son, that was kind of surprised, when I gave us my son.
Your suitcase and your son, you didn't tell him about.
Well, sometimes
Sometimes you have to do those things, and mothers will do that.
But anyhow, things, we did go on the truck, but we sat, in the back, and they had
Sure.
parachutes there. They
my,
brought
okay.
back parachutes.
Yeah?
And so, that's, things. And then we did go, I don't know what they call it. There was a strip, like, the way, like, if you go from here, to next head, you see, you have the ocean and you have the sounds.
Okay.
And that was between Baltic Sea and Frischeshafen.
Okay.
Have you heard about Frischeshafen, das Frischeshafen?
No.
It was, there, about Königsberg to Gdansk. It was big.
Okay.
But it was only a strip.
Okay.
So that was the only way where everybody was more or less safe, to go, we thought, things, but everybody did, and it took forever. It took, there about, over 10 days, to make that strip.
Wow. Now, why was it so long?
Well, because there was overloaded, and we couldn't go, you see.
Oh.
You see, everybody tried to... it was at the end of the... You see, that was... I left, there. I forgot that. The day I left Neukuren, when I said, we got to my in-laws, that was the 26th of February in 45.
Okay, so it's
So
very
everybody
end of the
knew
war.
the war was over. Everybody
Yeah.
tried to escape the Russians.
Right.
Nobody wanted to be things. So, it was just jammed. And the Russians tried, to close it off.
Right.
See, they came then from Poland. They were there already when they were in Prussia.
Now, how did you get across that? Is it a bridge or a ship or what?
That was a land. It was just
Oh, it was
like,
land.
you go over
Oh,
here
okay.
and just a strip. Things about narrow. There was, if you on it, there was no way, getting out.
Oh, okay, okay.
Just like
Yeah.
if you go here to next head, and everything
Next
is
head. It's so narrow, yeah.
it's so narrow.
Sure, and there's water on both sides.
That's right.
Okay, I understand now.
And
Yes.
things that people that even did go, like the farmers, who have took their
Sure.
horses, things like that. They tried to go over the ice,
Right, right.
and then the ice broke.
Yeah,
But you know what happened?
yeah. The farmers got in the water, I guess.
Well, they didn't.
Yeah.
Everything did go in the water.
Yeah, yeah.
Having what happened,
Yeah.
quite a few.
So it took you 10 days to get across that
That's
area.
right. Things, so
But you made it.
for 4 days, I had not to eat but snow.
Oh my goodness.
I had a few crackers for my son, then sometimes,
Yeah.
it was there again, 40 below zero. It was freezing.
40 below zero.
You know,
No
so-
food.
So we had blankets, there, then my son, there, you see, I knew, we could not afford, getting cold.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
if your body temperature, goes down, you
That's
would
right.
trouble, I
Oh,
knew
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So I always had my son. We just sat up, or just lie down, on the parachutes.
Wow. Yeah. Well, the parachutes are softer than the springs.
Well, not really, not really.
Not really. Okay. Next that idea.
I would recommend that to anybody who is just doing that for pleasure.
Yeah.
But you do what you have to do.
You do.
know?
You do
But
to
we
survive.
Finally, then we did go, and then, they closed it off.
Okay.
And then nobody, and we were still there. And then the Germans, they knew, everybody, they tried to get out as many people as possible.
Sure.
So they opened it up for a half an hour. I made it by a half an hour.
Wow.
But by that time, they already had to leave, some of the trucks, because they ran out, of gas.
Oh, yeah, sure.
So, they were, at the end, they had only, the Volkswagen left.
Okay.
So we did go, and then they said, look at you. And then we was already in Poland.
Okay.
So they said we will find, a railroad station, where you maybe, hopefully, get, a train coming sometimes,
Yeah,
or whatever, things. So you can go. Well, anyhow, they left us, off there,
Sure.
In order, to get to, to that train station. Snow was very hand. There was only one road, and we was not allowed to use any lights.
Right.
So we set we took turns, set on the front of the car,
Okay.
to tell him,
Which way to go?
Yeah,
Or
don't go to left,
Yeah.
stay in the middle.
So you were just sitting on the front of the car,
That's right.
and giving
left the door
instructions
open
to
a
the
little
driver.
bit,
Sure.
because it was dark,
Yeah, and you couldn't use the lights.
No.
Yeah. Very scary. I mean, we don't know what some people have gone through and what obviously you have gone through. Just an amazing story.
Especially, when you go, on that trip, we knew, things, and we didn't know, will we make it or will we not make it?
Yeah.
That was always on our mind.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And they closed that off. There was no way for us, to leave Prussia.
All right. But you did make it.
I did make it, things.
Yeah.
Well, then we saw a train coming. Well, we did go to the railroad station.
The train station?
They left us off, yes.
Okay.
And there was somebody there, and we stayed for 2 days.
Okay.
For 2 days, and then we saw a train coming.
All right.
And it was like a hospital train. There was all injured soldiers.
Injured soldiers, okay.
That was bringing them back, for...
Right.
It was loaded already,
Yeah.
things, but everybody tried to be nice, so they pushed me in, with my son,
Yeah.
And then that train, in 2 days made 3 kilometers.
3 kilometers?
That's all.
Oh, my goodness.
But there was the tracks, somewhere, they had, bombed out or managed,
So
so
they
couldn't, go. They had to be repaired.
Yeah. And did you have food?
People, in that train, they had food there, for the sick people,
Right.
And then, they shared it with us.
They shared it with you.
But, there, again, they took things, they ran out of food.
Yeah.
So we was then, and then the smell was impossible because the paramedics, they couldn't go through, because they was full of people,
Yeah, yeah.
Well, it's kind of really hard to explain, how you have to be there.
Yeah.
Really, on experience to.
Very difficult. Very difficult.
There was the 2 benches, there on each side of the train, we took turns, especially, there was other people that had children, they let us, sit, for a little while, there was not sleep, there are people that stood up, and slept, but
Yeah. Wow. And how long were you on that train?
Well, I was about there, 4 days.
4 days on the train.
Yeah, we did go to Berlin.
To Berlin?
Yes, and when we did go, we were supposed to go in one station. They had bombed it the day before, and it was still burning, so they had to go, to another station. But that was half bombed out too, was still, burning, and we ran, there. But they let us out, we could go there, and we ran, to that burning building, still, So, and there, things, Well, there I wanted to go, and see my husband, who was in Halle.
Okay.
He was stationed in Halle.
Okay.
Before I did go, to see him in my in-laws.
Right.
So, I made it there. I made it there, to Halle. And I stayed there 2 days.
With your in-laws?
No, with my husband.
With your husband?
With my husband. That's where he was stationed.
That's where he was.
You see, at that time, he was a test pilot.
Yeah, but he must have been really excited to see you.
Well, things, yes, things, there, things, everything, war is so complicated, or it can be so complicated.
I think it always is probably complicated.
And well, then, I made it, to my in-laws, but I had made, some notes, in between, because I still had a little suitcase, things, and, well, we slept whenever we could, because there was very, very little sleep, anywhere.
Yeah.
And somebody took that suitcase where I had that little note.
No.
So when I did go to my in-laws, I had nothing.
Wow. So you had a suitcase that you left with, you were able to keep most of the way, and then right somewhere along the way.
That's right.
Somebody
well, because everybody was so desperate. You see, there was so much bombing.
Yeah. Remember, you went back for that suitcase. You also brought your son. You didn't lose your son along the way, did you?
Well, my son normally 9 out of 10 always stayed on my lap.
Yeah.
Well, you see, first of all, the heat. We wanted to see both of us. Kept the body heat.
Sure.
That was very important. There, it was still very cold, even in Germany.
Yeah, very important.
So, well, then I stayed, there with them,
Yeah.
And,
how long did you stay with them?
Well, I stayed there. Actually, I got divorced from my husband.
You did?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a long story, but my mother, they're still stayed in touch with me, until they died, We was still, that was his fault.
Yeah, I understand.
There is another story over there, but I don't know if I should start on that one yet.
Well, yeah, we can pick that up another time, because we've gone through a lot already, I think. So, but how long were you there then? You got divorced from your husband. Were you divorced when you were in Germany?
Oh yeah. From my first husband.
Okay.
You see, the one I was married to.
Okay.
I got married on the 30th of April in 1940.
Okay.
That's when I got married.
Yeah. Okay.
And my baby was born on 41.
Okay.
So funny. I told people, I said, we got married on the 30th of April, and he was born on the 31st of May. Everybody looked at me. But I said, yes, but I got married in 40, and he was born in 41.
That's good. You play a little joke on him like that. I love it. That's great.
Yeah. Everybody looked at you and they laughed,
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
So there are things, I said, that is another story there, a long story.
Yeah.
From my in-laws, we had to, there, it was just a small city, and there things, but all of a sudden, the planes came in and bombed the city.
Oh, my.
We had casualties.
Yeah.
I said, that's another long story. Not a long, but things, things. So we had to leave the city there. Then we had to go out. Everybody had to leave.
Yeah.
But we did go to the woods.
Did you ever see your parents again?
My mother, yes. My father, no.
Yeah.
That's another long story.
Now, did you have other relatives, aunts or uncles, or?
Yes, I had. My father, had only, one sister and one brother. He was the youngest. And his brother, never married. Actually, he liked my mother, but my mother took my father, so he never married.
Yeah.
And then, I had his sister, things who lived, in Lithuania, I wanted to say Litauen, what we call it in German, Litauen,
Yeah.
we visited this, but they all left, and things, and we have
Yeah.
still many people unaccounted for.
Right. So, the craziness of war and what happened in Germany, those stories, a lot of them, at least from my perspective, haven't really been told. But it caused great chaos in people's lives. Many people, family members died. Many left the country, I suppose.
Yes, things, there. We, like, for instance, myself, you see, when after the war, and Germany was divided because Prussia was no longer in existence.
Right.
You see, Poland, I think Russia, wanted, Pillow, what I told you, before. They had a naval station that was, almost an ice-free naval station,
Right.
And Poland, wanted, his corridor back.
Uh-huh.
You see, before Hitler, we, in order from Prussia, going to the mainland, we had to go through Poland, and we had to have a pass.
Right.
And that was, we think about what they wanted, that back, what was taken away from them. Mm-hmm. That was by Gdansk. I don't know if you're familiar with all that area.
Yeah, not as much, If you could just give me a little bit about the rest of your life. We left you now. You were with your in-laws, living in Germany.
That's right, in Kloppenburg.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And where did you move to next? What happened next?
Well, I stayed there, until I met my husband, an American.
Oh, okay.
And then I got married.
And you got married. Okay.
And came to the United States.
Oh, okay. And when did you when did you get married? When was that about?
In 54.
54. Okay. And then you came to the United States when was that? In 54 as well?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, good. And where did you live in the United States?
I lived in Norfolk because he was.
So you came.
He was in the military.
He was. Yeah. Okay. So this is a military town. Oh, that's great. Okay.
But then he passed away. Because his heart stopped twice. That brought my life.
Oh my.
But then he did. Well, when I took him out, when his heart stopped, the first time.
Yeah.
He stayed in the hospital there, close to 2 months, and when I took him home, I asked the doctor, he says, "Doctor, what chance does my husband have?" Yeah. And he says, 3 months, 6 months, perhaps a year.
Wow.
I kept him alive for 13 years.
13 years?
Yes,
Wow.
he was a guinea pig for them.
Wow. And so but you kept him alive in the United States. You came back here into Norfolk, and you kept him alive here. Did you marry again?
And then, yes, he married, he died, but then I was single for about 4 years. I thought I never will get married again, but then my husband's wife, had died, but I knew a friend, her husband, was in the Naval Academy. Actually, my husband had a good friend, and his wife knew, this family, there, and she called, they invited us, all, over, and that's when I got to know them.
Okay.
And so, things, I think maybe after about, half a year, his wife died, and then, and I said there was classmates, so that he did go to visit them, and he said, "Well, I have somebody, I think he would like to meet,
Yeah.
So they introduced us,
Oh, that's great.
We dated for about close to 3 years, before we got married.
Sure.
And then, I was married 32 years.
Oh, that was a long marriage.
Mr. Conger, yes, and so then he passed away. It's been about 10 years.
10 years ago.
Yes.
Did you live here at Westminster, Canterbury together?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Great.
Mm-hmm. Actually, we came in a little bit earlier. We hadn't planned on. But we did come because, you see, since I was here all by myself, I had no relatives, no nothing.
Right.
I didn't know anybody. And then all my husband's relatives, he came from Newburgh, upstate.
Okay.
Newburgh. So there. I always stayed in touch, with them.
Right.
But I mean, they was too far away, and then they all passed away too.
Yeah.
They passed away shortly after that.
Sure.
He was the youngest one, I mean, of his family.
Would just let me ask you one quick question, and you can answer this very briefly. What piece of advice would you give your younger self?
Well,
Give advice to yourself. What do you wish you would have known
that is
in the
that is
20s?
hard question to answer. At that time, I mean, we all was worried about the war and what will happen. But when you had a child, Hitler you didn't have to work.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I didn't work.
Right.
I mean, after things. I mean, I had some education. Don't get me wrong,
Yes.
but I took care of my son because you see there was no babysitters or anything like that.
It was a
things,
different age, different time.
And you listen to the war, everything looked good at first. Mm-hmm. Until things started, and when I was talking to my parents and things like that, and then, that's when my father said, "Ooh, here we go," things.
Yeah. Your father knew.
Well, things, like, you see, I don't know if you know that, like Russia, like they have railroad tracks. They're not the same, than here in Europe.
Yes.
The Russians, they have a smaller, they had to be all rebuilt.
Oh, my. Okay.
You didn't know that?
I did not know that.
You see?
No. Yeah.
There's so many things.
So many
I have
things,
talked to so many people with different things,
Yeah.
But they said, we never knew,
Well, you have so many good stories, and I so appreciate you, Greta, spending this time with us. I'm gonna ask you back again to fill in some of the other years. Hopefully, some of the
funny, but
some of the better years.
The end of the war, when the war ended, and we
Yes.
saw the English troops.
Yeah.
I just had a rifle right in my face.
Oh my.
I don't know if they woke me up. Oh, well, that's another different story.
Wow. Well, you have lots of stories, and we
yes.
appreciate you.
I've been on the fighting line.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. Well, we've got to.
Oh no!
We've got to. Not today, but we're gonna.
No, it's too much. It's
But
too much.
we'll go back and talk about some of
I
those
stayed
stories.
one night there, in Tilsit, because
Yes.
I wanted to get some clothes for my parents because they didn't. Well, they could only. They had to walk 30 kilometers to get the train,
Oh yes.
and they couldn't bring too much, and it was so cold, and so that was two friends of mine. They made arrangements, for a truck. They took some bombs, to the front line, and that's, when we did go, man-to-man combat.
Yeah.
I stayed, in the city. No lights, no nothing, nobody, except, the people, the guys, there was not, just everywhere,
Right.
It was the only one there.
Wow.
And the Russian shooting, the German shooting.
And you were there.
Right in the middle. I ran for my life.
Yeah.
Where I hate the shrapnels, just around me falling. You see, the Russians, when they're at the end, when their planes came, they put down, a bomb, what we call it, the Christmas tree. It lit up the whole city.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you heard of that?
I've seen
Just,
that. Yeah.
just like that, and then tree, just like sunlight, the whole city.
No, I know. Yeah. Well, we thank you for the time you've given us today, and we just so appreciate your life and your sharing those stories with us. Thank you very much. And so we're going to sign off for today, and there'll be another day soon.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Westminster Canterbury Tales podcast. Thank you for listening.